I grew up in a house where I never felt like I belonged. From the moment my stepbrother Tyler entered the picture, everything shifted. I was the quiet one, the one who blended into the background while Tyler became the golden child. He could do no wrong, ever. When he flunked math, my mom blamed the teacher. When I got an A-, she'd ask why it wasn't an A. I learned early on that fairness wasn't something I'd find in my own home. Still, I kept my head down. I worked hard, got a scholarship, and eventually earned a degree in finance. The day I signed the job offer from a regional bank, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want their half-hearted congratulations or backhanded compliments. I just wanted peace. And so, I disappeared from their lives. For 8 long years, I had no contact with my stepfamily. I focused on building something that was mine, my career, my savings, my peace of mind. I traveled, bought my condo, and found happiness in solitude. For once, I was in control. But Thanksgiving came around last year, and something inside me cracked. Maybe it was nostalgia, or maybe some twisted part of me still craved their approval. Whatever it was, I convinced myself to show up. I told myself it would be quick. In and out. Smile. Eat, leave. I even convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, they'd changed. I was wrong. The moment I stepped through that front door, I felt it. The air was thick with tension and unspoken words. My mother gave me a lukewarm hug, like she was greeting a distant cousin. Tyler was already on the couch, legs spread like he owned the place, scrolling through his phone like my presence was an inconvenience. I had prepared for this. I brought a gift basket with wine and chocolates. I had even written out a check for $15,000, planning to hand it to Tyler quietly. I also came with a surprise, an offer. My bank had an opening for a regional client liaison. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, $60K a year, and came with benefits and a path forward. I figured if I extended kindness, maybe something would shift. Over dinner, I brought it up. I told Tyler I had pulled some strings, and that the interview was practically a formality. I handed him the check as a cushion to get him started, something to help until his first paycheck came through. He looked at the check, then looked at me, and he laughed. Not a chuckle. A full, mocking laugh. So, what? You think you can buy your way into this family now? I froze. He waved the check like it was a piece of trash. You disappear for 8 years, come back with your banker attitude, and think you're better than everyone? What? You want a medal for handing out pity money? I tried to respond, but my mother cut in with a tight smile. Tyler, be nice. Your sister's just trying to help. But Tyler wasn't done. She's not my sister. She's just Dad's little mistake. Speaking of which, how's he doing on the ground these days? Still proud of his little overachiever. That comment broke something in me. My father had died when I was 17. He was the only one who ever made me feel seen. And Tyler knew that. I stood up slowly, my hands trembling. I didn't say a word. I couldn't trust myself to speak. I just picked up my coat and walked out, leaving the check behind on the table. The cold air outside hit me like a slap. I got in my car, stared at the steering wheel, and forced myself not to cry. I told myself I did the right thing. I tried. I extended a hand, and it got bitten. But Tyler didn't see it that way. To him, that moment wasn't an act of kindness. It was a challenge to his ego. And from that point on, he made it his mission to tear down everything I had built. I didn't know it yet, but that Thanksgiving dinner wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. It started with a phone call at work. At first, I thought it was just a wrong number. Some guy asking for Mistress Lexi, breathing heavily and giggling. I hung up, disgusted. But then it happened again.
And again.
And then 10 more times over the next week. All from different numbers. That's when I noticed the emails. My work inbox was flooded with sign-up confirmations, porn sites, sugar baby ads, even a few for online dominatrix services. Someone had subscribed me to over 100 different platforms. My name, my work email, my job title, all listed. At first, I panicked. I scrambled to delete everything before IT could flag me, but it was too late. My manager called me into her office with a printed copy of some bizarre adult site that listed me as a private consultant. I could barely speak as I tried to explain. "It's harassment," I said. "Someone's targeting me." She stared at me for a long second, then said quietly, "Lock down your accounts. Every single one. Right now." I followed her advice. Changed every password. Added two-factor authentication. Froze my credit. I even switched my phone number. For a moment, I thought I had outrun it. Until I found the flyers in my building. There were about 30 of them, plastered across the mailroom, elevator, and front door. My photo. My full name. A fake quote. "Let me help you disappear debt for a fee. No questions asked." It made it sound like I was running some underground fraud ring out of my condo. I ripped them down with trembling hands, my heart racing. My neighbors stared at me like I was contagious. The building manager threatened to report me to the HOA. I begged him to let me explain. And then the packages started showing up. Boxes of adult diapers, fake credit cards, used shoes, even a giant inflatable doll. All addressed to me. Some left in the lobby. Some are in front of my door. One even shoved halfway into my mail slot, ripping it off its hinge. The worst came one Monday morning when HR called me in again. Someone had sent them a confidential tip claiming I had a psychiatric breakdown and was hiding it. Attached was a forged letter from a fake psychiatrist, complete with a diagnosis of acute delusional paranoia and violent ideation. I couldn't breathe. I laughed when they handed me the paper because it was so ridiculous. But HR wasn't amused. They put me on administrative leave pending an investigation. That night, I sat alone in my condo, blinds drawn, phone off, shaking. I knew who it was. There was no doubt in my mind. Tyler. But I didn't have proof yet. So I decided to get it. I started with the basics. New security locks, hidden cameras, a smart doorbell with recording. I took a few self-defense classes. Then I called Barbara. Barbara was my one constant since college, sharp, loyal, and terrifyingly organized. When I told her everything, she didn't even blink. "We're going to find out exactly what that piece of garbage is doing," she said, already making notes. A week later, I drove back to my hometown. I stayed at a small motel on the edge of town under a fake name. I didn't tell anyone I was there, not even my mother. I spent the next 2 days tailing Tyler. He still didn't work, still mooched off our mom. But every night, around 10, he'd take a backpack and disappear for about 2 hours. He always left on foot, always alone. I followed him from a distance, camera ready. That third night, I saw where he was going. A rundown shed behind an abandoned gas station. It was locked, but he had a key. He stayed inside for an hour and left with nothing in his hands. The next morning, while he was home, I broke in. What I found made my skin crawl. Inside, there were walls covered in photos of me. From Facebook, LinkedIn, and even a few candid shots I had no idea existed. One was from a dinner I'd had with coworkers 2 months ago. He'd been watching me. There were printouts of my social media posts, work schedules, addresses of friends and colleagues, and handwritten notes with phrases like embarrass, humiliate, discredit in big red ink. One corkboard was labeled Operation Payback. He had a literal to-do list. Crossed off items included flyers, adult site signups, fake psych eval, call boss from burner phone, and some not yet done items. Crash car into hers. Send a fake drug tip to cops. Frame for embezzlement. I took as many photos as I could, keeping my hands steady even though my insides were turning to ice. Then I called Barbara. She drove down that night, armed with her laptop, flash drives, and a calm fury I'll never forget. "This guy is dangerous," she whispered after seeing everything. "You can't just go to the police. You need a case so solid it bleeds truth." So we spent the next few days backing everything up, cloud storage, hidden drives, paper copies. She helped me secure everything legally and even connected me with a friend who was a cybersecurity expert. I went back to the city soon after, quieter and sharper than before. I knew now that this wasn't just bullying or pettiness. This was war. and I wasn't going to lose. I knew I couldn't keep living like a hunted animal, checking locks 5 times, jumping at every sound, second-guessing every stranger. Tyler had declared war, and if I didn't fight back smartly, he'd destroy everything I had left. So, I made a plan. A trap. Barbara helped me set it up. We created a fake online profile, nothing flashy, just enough to look credible. I posed as a buyer interested in small-scale narcotics, casually messaging on a local forum that Tyler was known to lurk in. Barbara rerouted all traffic through VPNs and dummy accounts. Within 3 days, someone using a familiar username responded. The moment he agreed to meet, I knew it was him. We chose a public location. I wore a wire, a small device hidden in my scarf, and kept my phone recording the entire time. Tyler didn't recognize me at first, probably because of the sunglasses and wig, but his arrogance gave him away fast. He leaned in and whispered about moving a few things, name-dropping slang I'd heard before, stuff I knew he picked up from sketchy high school friends. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. She thinks she can outsmart me, but I've got plans. Real plans. I've done worse to people for less. She doesn't know I have access now. Everything she's built, I can wreck it. I even thought about buying a piece, just to scare her a little. He mimed holding a gun, laughing to himself. I left after 15 minutes, every nerve in my body on fire. When I got home, I collapsed on the floor, shaking. The next morning, my condo smelled awful, like something had died. I rushed to the kitchen, then the hallway, but the smell was strongest near the front door. When I opened it, I nearly gagged. There was a sealed box leaking brown liquid. I opened it with gloved hands and nearly vomited. Rotting fish. Dozens of them, wrapped in moldy newspaper. Some were weeks old. Security footage showed someone in a hoodie convincing the doorman he was my cousin. The face wasn't visible, but the voice? I'd know it anywhere. Tyler. I called the police again. They came, took my statement, and shook their heads. Unless he physically harms you or steals something directly, there's not much we can charge him with. Harassment's tricky unless you can tie him to each event. I felt helpless. But Barbara didn't let me stay that way. You need to go legal. It's time. So, I did. We compiled all the evidence, screenshots, recordings, flyers, the revenge list, the fish incident, even the drug-dealing audio. Barbara connected me with a top-tier lawyer, one who didn't flinch at cases like this. But before I filed anything, I needed to do something I had avoided for years. I went to see my mother. She still lived in that same creaky house where Tyler ruled like a king. When she opened the door, she looked surprised and weary. I could see the years in her eyes. Maybe she knew, deep down, why I was there. I sat in her living room and placed a thick folder on the table. She opened it slowly, photo after photo, printout after printout. Her hands trembled. Is this real? She whispered. All of it, I said. She didn't speak for a while, just stared at the proof, her eyes wet but unreadable. And then, right on cue, the door slammed. Tyler stormed in. What the hell is this? He barked, spotting the folder. You broke into my condo, I said, standing. You impersonated family. You've been stalking me, harassing me. And now I've gone legal. He laughed, but it was hollow. You don't get it. You left. You ran off and got your shiny job and left me behind with her. He pointed at our mother, who looked down ashamed. She never cared about me once you were gone, he said. You think you had it rough? Try being the screw-up when the only one who made things work bailed. I had to live under that shadow. Every single day. You made your mess, I snapped. I gave you a job offer. I gave you money. And you spat on it. Because it wasn't real, he yelled. You did it to make yourself feel better. You were always the favorite, even when you weren't here. That's not true, our mother said softly, but Tyler didn't hear her. He paced like a caged animal, furious and flustered. You think I'm scared of some court paperwork? You think this'll stop me? No, I said, stepping closer. But maybe prison will. You keep pushing, Tyler, and you'll find out just how real the consequences can get. He stared at me for a long time. Then he grabbed his car keys and stormed out. I watched from the window as he sped off, definitely over the limit, definitely not thinking straight. My mother sat there, pale and speechless. I looked at her one last time. This was his last warning. If he comes near me again, I won't stop at a restraining order. And I meant every word. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee at work when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. After everything, I didn't trust unknown numbers. But something in me hesitated. "This is Mercy General," a voice said. "Are you Alexander Brooks?" I paused. "Yes. You're listed as the emergency contact for a Tyler Brooks. He's been in an accident. A truck struck him near Eastwood and 19th. He's stable, but he's asking for you." I didn't know what I felt, shock, maybe. A hollow ache in my chest. I hadn't listed myself as his contact in years. It must have been an old file. But I went. At the hospital, he looked like a shadow of the guy who had mocked me at Thanksgiving. He had a fractured leg, bruised ribs, and stitches near his eye. I didn't speak right away. I just filled out the forms, arranged insurance documentation, and paid the initial bill for my emergency fund. It was mechanical, distant, cold even. He opened his eyes slowly and squinted at me. "Why'd you come?" I didn't flinch. "Because you're still family," I said. "But this is your last chance. Don't confuse my presence with forgiveness." His face twitched, and for the first time in forever, he looked ashamed. "I'm sorry," he mumbled, barely audible. "For Thanksgiving. For all of it." I nodded, but didn't reply. I left after making sure his chart was updated and that he had everything he needed. I didn't look back. Weeks passed. I went back to work, rejoined the world I'd built from the ground up. And for the first time in months, there was silence. No emails. No packages. No harassment. It was peaceful. Then one Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I checked the door cam before opening it. It was Tyler. He was clean-shaven, wearing jeans and a pressed shirt. He looked different. There was nervous energy in how he shifted his weight. "Hey," he said, eyes low. "Can I talk to you?" I didn't answer right away. Then I stepped aside. 5 minutes. He handed me a sealed envelope. "It's some of the money you gave me. I've got 2 jobs now. One's at a shipping warehouse, and the other's temp admin work. I'm living with roommates in Elmwood." I opened the envelope, $800 in crisp bills. I stared at it, then set it on the counter. "I don't want the money," I said. "The best way to repay me is to keep doing what you're doing. Get your life together. That's it." His voice cracked a little. "You think I can change? I think you already are. But trust takes time. And it only comes back if you stay consistent." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I've been going to group therapy too." That part nearly broke me. Not because I pitied him, but because I could finally see a glimpse of the brother I'd always hoped existed beneath the mess. "Let's start slow," I said. "Coffee next Saturday?" He blinked in surprise. "You're serious?" "Yes," I replied. "One coffee. One conversation. That's it." He smiled, small, hesitant, but real. "I'll be there." And when he left, I stood in my quiet apartment and finally breathed, not because the past had been erased, but because for the first time, the future didn't scare me. It felt like a beginning, a cautious one, but a beginning nonetheless. Tyler didn't miss that first coffee, or the second, or the next 5 after that. He was still rough around the edges, still figuring things out, but the change in him was real, tangible. Every week, he showed up with stories about loading docks, managing inventory, his roommates' weird habits, and his awkward attempts at budgeting. But mixed in with all of it was pride. Quiet pride, the kind that comes when you earn something with your own hands. 2 months in, he told me he'd enrolled in a GED program. I nearly dropped my coffee. "I figured if I want to stop feeling behind, I have to stop being behind," he said. "That's how you got out, right?" It wasn't just the GED. He started working overtime, took on responsibility at the warehouse, and even got promoted to shift supervisor. He showed me his new ID badge like a kid showing off a report card, beaming as he held it up to the light. "I told my boss I used to be a mess," he said one day. She said everyone's a mess until they're not. One evening, after dinner at a quiet diner we'd started going to, he turned serious. We were in the parking lot, windows fogged up from the cold, and he didn't look at me when he spoke. "I used to hate you," he said quietly. "I mean really hate you. Because you left. Because you were the only one who ever made me feel like maybe things could be different. When you disappeared, everything collapsed. Mom shut down. Tom got worse. I didn't know who I was without you to fight with." He looked at his hands, which were shaking slightly. "I'm not saying that excuses anything I did. It doesn't. But I was drowning, and I took it out on the one person who had already made it out alive." I didn't say anything right away. I was too busy trying to breathe. "I thought you were Dad's favorite," I finally said. "You always got more. More attention. More room to mess up." I felt invisible. He looked at me, really looked, and nodded. "Maybe we were both right," he said. And just like that, something softened. Not erased, not fixed, but softened. Months passed. We kept meeting. We weren't siblings in the way movies paint them. There were no inside jokes or shared playlists. But we were honest. That was enough. Then one day, I came home from work and found an envelope on my kitchen counter. Tyler had used his spare key, the one I'd given him for emergencies. Inside was a check. $15,000. And a note. "This is not a bribe. Or guilt. Or proof. It's just the right thing to do. Thank you. For everything. T." I held that check for a long time. Not because of the amount, though I'd be lying if I said it wasn't significant, but because of what it meant. He wasn't just sorry anymore. He was accountable. The next morning, I cashed it. I called him later that day. "I accepted the money," I said. "Not because I need it, but because you do." "I figured," he said, and we both laughed. Then came the day he walked into my bank. Not as a client, this time as a new hire. He'd applied through the regular channel, passed the interview, passed the background check, after some heavy explanation, and got the job. I stayed out of it. That was part of our new dynamic. He didn't want favors. He wanted chances. He earned them. And that ripple, his effort, spread farther than I expected. One night, Mom called. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. "I started therapy," she said. "Tyler helped me find someone. He told me everything. About the shed. About Thanksgiving. I didn't know, Lexi. I truly didn't know." "I believe you," I said. And I did. She hesitated. "Thank you for not giving up. On him. On any of us." Even Tom, the man who once treated me like a guest in my own home, started changing. Slowly, awkwardly, but noticeably. He stopped calling me uptight. Stopped mocking my almond milk or my yoga classes. He even read one of the finance books I gave him. The next family dinner felt like stepping onto unfamiliar ground. It wasn't perfect. Mom burned the stuffing. Tom commented, "Toxins in salad dressing." But when he started pushing his health food obsession on me again, Tyler raised an eyebrow and said, "Tom, she's 35. She's allowed to eat what she wants." And Tom, of all people, nodded and passed me the bread. That moment, that was everything. After dinner, Tyler helped clean up without being asked. He joked with Mom, teased Tom, and double-checked that I got home safe. Later that night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city glow. I thought about everything, every fight, every flyer, every police report, and therapy session. I thought about the girl who left home at 18 with a savings account and a suitcase, thinking she'd never come back. And I thought about now. We weren't perfect. We still had miles to go. But for the first time, we were facing forward. Together. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.